Today we'll start topic 5, which is about the electricity and chemistry, and we'll discuss how we can do electrolysis of the molten substances as well as aqueous substances. So first, what is the definition or meaning of electrolysis? Electrolysis is simply a process of passing current through a molten or aqueous solution. So when we try to pass the current through a molten or aqueous solution, what we call that process as electrolysis. So for this electrolysis, you have to first learn the labels. So electrolysis is simply the process of passing current through the molten or aqueous solution. First thing related to this electrolysis, you should understand the labels of this electrolytic cell, and the second thing is how it works. So the labels of electrolytic cell. So first what we have the battery or cell. What is the difference between battery or the cell? Cell is the single unit. When we have a single unit, we call it cell. But we have group of cells together. What we call that as a battery. So this one is a cell, where this is a combination of cells. What we call that as a battery. And battery is having two terminals, or cell is having two terminals. The big line, the longer line, is representing the positive terminal, and the small line is representing the negative terminal. As you can see, a pencil cell, you will find on this cell it is written positive and negative. So same way, when we represent symbolic representation of a cell is by two lines. One of the line is longer than the other. So the line which is longer, that is representing the positive terminal, and the line which is shorter, that is representing the negative terminal. Same thing for battery as well. The longer line is representing the positive terminal at one end, and shorter line is representing the negative terminal. So first we have a battery or a cell. Then this cell or a battery is connected to two plates which are known as electrode. So this plate, this is electrode, the other one is also known as electrode. And which material normally these electrodes are made up of? Either they are made up of graphite, carbon, made of carbon or graphite, you can say, or platinum. I'm writing in short PT. PT is a symbol for platinum. So these electrodes, both of the electrodes are made up of either carbon, which is graphite, or platinum. Now when we connect these two plates with a battery or a cell, the plate, the electrode which is connected with a positive terminal of the battery, this is specifically known as anode. So anode is a plate or anode is an electrode attached with the positive end of the battery. Electrode is simply a plate. There are two plates in an electrolytic cell. These plates are known as electrodes, and they are normally made up of carbon or platinum. So the electrode which is connected with a positive plate of the battery, positive terminal of the battery. So the electrode attached with a positive terminal is known as anode, and the electrode which is attached with a negative terminal of the battery or cell. First thing, you have to learn the labels, and later we will discuss what is the purpose of these electrodes. Right now I'm not discussing what is the purpose of these electrodes. I'm discussing the labels of electrolytic cell. So in an electrolytic cell we have a battery or a cell which is connected to two plates. One of the plate is known as, both are known as electrode, but specifically the plate which is connected with a positive terminal of the battery is known as anode, and the one which is connected with a negative terminal is known as cathode. Here the plates, it can be normal plates, but in an electrolytic cell, what are the materials these plates are made up of? It is made up of either carbon or platinum. So the material which normally we use for these plates, the carbon is there. If they say name a material used to make the electrodes from non-metal, so that will be carbon, and for metal it is platinum. Then we dip these electrodes in a solution. So what we do, we dip these electrodes in a solution in a mixture which is having ions, and the solution or the mixture in which we dip these electrodes, what we call that solution, we call that solution as electrolyte. So the solution inside these electrodes are dipped, that solution is simply known as electrolyte. And inside the electrolyte, what we have, inside the electrolyte, what we have, charges, positive and negative charges are there. So example, the red is representing the positive charge and the blue is representing the negative charge. The positive charges, which electrode they should move? Towards the anode, towards the positive plate, or towards the negative? The positive charges, the positive ions, where they should move? Towards which plate? Anode or cathode? Yeah, that's right. Because the positive charges, because as we know, unlike charges attract each other. So unlike charges attract, so we know this is a negative plate, the anode, the cathode is a negative plate and anode is a positive plate because it is connected to positive. So this negative terminal of the battery, the cathode which is connected with the negative terminal of the battery, that will attract the positive ions. So we will observe the movement, the positive ions tend to move towards the cathode. And as the positive ions so as the positive ion move towards cathode, they are known as cations. This is a name given to the positive ions. So the positive ions are simply known as the cations. And what happened? The negative ions attracted towards the positive plate, which is anode. So the negative ion, they will move towards the anode, and they are known as anions. So negative ions are known as anions and the positive ions are known as cations. Is it clear? First thing, the label of electrolytic cell. So whenever you have electrolytic cell, what are the things there in an electrolytic cell? Number one, it will either have a cell or a battery. It will have electrodes, it will have cathode, it will have anode, and it will have electrolyte. And inside the electrolyte, there will be a positive and negative ions, which are known as cations and anions. Is it clear? The label of electrolytic cell. Right now, we discuss only the label. I will explain how it works, but first thing, in exam, normally you will find in paper 6 that they provide you an electrolytic cell and they ask to label. So if I provide an electrolytic cell, so what is label A? What is A here? A battery. How you identify it's a battery? Because when you are using only two lines, then it will be a cell. But if it is more than two lines, then it will be a battery. So label A is representing a battery. What about label B, which is connected with the positive terminal of the battery? What is this label B? Anode or cathode? So this is, you can say it is anode. Only anode is acceptable. Anode, you don't have to write anode and electrode. Common name we can say electrode. Commonly it's called electrode, but specifically because it is connected with the positive terminal, so we call that as anode. What about C? So that will be cathode. And what about D? What about this solution D? That is electrolyte. And inside D there are charges because we are passing the current through the charges. So what about E, positive charge? What we call cation or anion? The positive charge. That's called, because positive charges are attracted towards the cathode, so we call them as cations. Cat is from cathode and ion because it is a charge. And negative ions are attracted towards The anode, so what we call them? We call them as anions. So whenever a question is there related to electrolytic cell, the common question is label the electrolytic cell. So either it will be a battery or a cell depending on the size, then anode, cathode, and then you will have electrolyte, cations, and anions. Is it clear to everyone? The labels of electrolytic cell. Positive ions are known as cations and negative ions are known as anions. Now, working of the electrolytic cell. This is important to understand that how it works. So for an electrolytic cell, first thing is the labels. Like example, this is a beaker. And inside the beaker, you have two plates. And you place it, the beaker consists of a liquid, a molten or aqueous, that is connected with the battery. So for a battery, the big line, longer line is representing a positive terminal and smaller line is representing a negative terminal. So which side is a positive terminal? Left or right? Which side is a positive terminal? So left side is a positive terminal and the right hand side is a negative terminal. So the plate, the electrode, the plates are known as electrode. So this is electrode, the left hand side there is electrode and the right hand side there is also electrode. And normally these electrodes are made up of either carbon, which is graphite, or platinum. This also commonly, like most common material which we use to make these electrode, it's either of carbon or platinum. Now what happened? The one, the plate which is connected or electrode which is connected with a positive terminal, it is having a specific name. And what is that specific name? That is called anode. And the plate which is connected with a negative terminal, that's also having a specific name and we call that as cathode. And inside the solution there are charges, there are positive and negative charges. The solution itself is known as electrolyte, and these charges having the specific name. The positive charges are known as, because they tend to attract towards cathode, is known as cation, and the negative charges are known as anions. So this is the label, but now how it works, how the electrolytic cell works. Now first what happened, number one, that electrons from the negative terminal of the battery move towards cathode. That is first thing what happened. So first what happened, the electrons, I'm representing by E, and electrons have negative charge. So these electrons move from the negative terminal of the battery towards the cathode. So cathode will have most of the electrons. Is it clear, the first part, to everyone? Because it is very important that you understand the working of the cell, that how it works. Anyone having a doubt or a query or question in between, you can ask even using a chat or you can use a mic. So first thing what happened, the electron from the negative terminal of the battery, they move towards the cathode. Then what is the charge of electron? These electrons are negative. So the electrons have negative charge they attract the positive ion from the solution. So because the electrons are having a negative charge, so as they have a negative charge, as we know, unlike charges attract, so these electrons, what they will do, they will attract the positive ions. So positive ions are attracted towards the cathode or towards the electron. Now this is what happens, second thing. And what is the difference between, look, what is the difference between anion and electron? Like if I draw chlorine here or fluorine, first shell, because some students are confused with electron and anion, what is the difference between them? Fluorine is having 9 protons, 10 neutron. The first shell, fluorine is having 2 electrons. The second shell, fluorine is having 7 electrons. So this is basically, because it is having equal number of proton and electron, there are 9 protons and there are 9 electrons. So this is basically a fluorine atom. But because fluorine is a non-metal, so it can gain electron. So 9 proton are there, 10 neutrons. First shell, it will have 2. Second shell, 7 electrons belongs to fluorine. So 7 electron belongs to this fluorine, and one of the electron it took from any other element. So if it took that electron, so what will be the charge on the fluorine? Because it is having 9 protons and it is having 10 electrons. So what will be the resultant charge? Because extra electron, so it will be -1. And what we call this, we call that as fluorine ion, or we can also say this is a fluorine anion, fluorine negative ion or anion. So basically, what is the difference between the anion and the electron. Anion will have proton, neutron and electron, but majority of them will be electrons. And electron itself is a single particle. Is it clear the difference first between the anion and electron? So electron is basically this single particle is called electron. And anion means it will have proton, neutron and electron, but it will have more electron than proton. So what happened? First, from the negative terminal, electrons are moving out, and these electrons attract the positive ion. As they attract the positive ion, they will mix with electron. Now, what happened? The third thing, yeah, one electron is, all the electrons are negatively charged. So even one electron is minus one. Then third, what happened? The anode, the positive terminal, or the anode attract the negative ions. So what will happen? The anode will attract the negative ions, so these negative ions will move towards the anode, or they will migrate towards the anode. And then what will happen? Because negative ion means they have extra electron. So the term negative ion means they have extra electron. So the negative ion will lose their extra electron, which they have, and this electron move towards the positive terminal of the battery, or you can say cell. So because the negative ions are having extra electron, so as they have extra electron, what they will do? They will lose their extra electron, and this electron which these negative ions will lose, this electron will move as it is attracted towards the positive terminal. So that electron will return back to the battery. So electrons are coming out from the negative terminal. They attract the positive ion towards themselves, and the negative ions are attracted towards the anode. They lose the electron, and as they lose their electron, that electron will travel to the battery and return to the battery. This is how an electrolytic cell works. Is it clear? Anyone having a doubt or a question in this part? Till this part? Yes, Smart?
The battery recharge itself.
No, it's not recharging itself because the energy which is coming back is not sufficient. It's very small amount. Yeah, but still it is getting charges. So what happened? The negative ion, if I draw only the positive terminal, look, the anode part. So this is the anode which is connected with the positive terminal. So I'm drawing a fluoride ion, which is first having 9 protons, 10 neutrons, and same as 10 electrons are there because it is a negative. So this is a fluoride ion. Now what happened? Because it's an anion. Anion means it is having extra electron. So what will happen? Anion is attracted towards the anode. When it is attracted towards the anode, it will turn into fluorine atom. It will lose that electron because electron is experiencing attraction. So the electron which was here, the electron which is here is being lost, and this electron will move towards the positive terminal of battery. And when this anion loses electron, it will turn into atom back again. So basically during electrolysis, the ions are changing into atoms and molecules. What is the application? What is the use? We use these electrolytic cell for electroplating, that we will discuss. But first thing is, it's a basic thing that you should understand how an electrolytic cell works. Is it clear, the working of electrolytic cell? Anyone want me to repeat, or is it okay, fine? So example, in exam normally, look, when you can, as you can see here, this is a positive terminal and negative terminal, and it is connected to electrodes. I'm not drawing the whole electrolytic cell, I'm just drawing the ions part. Fluorine atom, fluorine ion changed to fluorine atom, and then what happened, that is, we'll discuss in the how to write an equation. But the first thing is you should understand, because it is step by step. The first thing is the label of electrolytic cell. The second thing is the working of electrolytic cell. And the third will be what will happen to these ions when they lose or gain electron. So example, if we have sodium ion, first shell it is having 2 electron, second shell it will have 8 electrons. So sodium is positive ion because it is having 11 protons and it is having 12 neutrons. That is a sodium ion. And we have, say, fluoride ion. So fluorine is having 9 protons, 10 neutrons. First shell it will have, say, 2 electrons. Second shell it will have 7, belongs to fluorine. And 1 it took from the other element, example from sodium. So this is a fluoride ion, this is a sodium ion. Now what happened? Then from the negative terminal of a battery, electrons are coming out. So as these electrons will move, the majority of electrons will be there on the cathode. So which ion they will attract? These electrons, sodium ion or fluoride ion? Fluoride ion is negative, sodium ion is positive. Which ion they will attract? So sodium is positive and electrons are negative, and unlike charges attract each other. So sodium ions are attracted towards the cathode. As these sodium ions are attracted towards cathode, what will happen? This sodium will take this electron. So when this sodium will take this electron, first it was having 11 protons and it was having 10 electrons. But when this sodium will take this electron back, how many protons will be there? 11 protons, and it will have 11 electron. So this sodium ion will turn into sodium atom. So the positive ion, it gain electron and it will turn into atom. Same thing happened for fluoride, because fluorine is having extra electron. You can see it is having 9 protons and it is having 10 electrons. That's why it is a charge. But when this fluoride ion is attracted towards the cathode, so it will lose electron. As it lose electron, one of the electron is lost, and this electron will move towards the positive terminal of the battery. So when it loses electron, now the fluorine will have 9 protons and 9 electron. So it means it will also turn into atom. So during electrolysis, what will happen? First, the ions will change into atoms. Yeah, from the starting they were not atoms. From the starting they were ions, because we are using a compound here, and inside the compound we will have positive and negative ions, as it is an ionic compound. So during electrolysis, when we pass the current through a solution, what happened? We observe the ions will change into atom. The positive ions, they will gain electron, whereas negative ions, they will lose electron. Is it clear to everyone what happened in electrolytic cell? So in exam, you will find another type of question which is common, that they say draw an arrow to show the direction of electrons, and draw an arrow to show the direction of charges, movement of the charges. Example, this is our electrolytic cell. So if I say an arrow to show the direction of electrons, so from negative terminal it will be out, and towards the positive terminal they will move in. And if we want to draw an arrow to show the movement of the ions, as there are positive and negative ions, the positive, and these are the negative ions. So the direction of the positive ions, because positive ions are moving towards cathode, so they will move towards cathode, and direction of the negative ions, they will move towards anode. So this is also a question in which they ask to show direction of electron movement as well as direction of the ions movement. This is first the introduction of electrolytic cell. We started with the labels, then we discussed how this electrolytic cell works. I'll share another link and continue this discussion.